Hello everyone, I'm AndyDavo. I've brought you recently all the race guide videos, and now we've covered how to build and level the teams. I thought it would be a good idea to teach you about how to actually play Blood Bowl. Since the launch around about 2 weeks ago, I've been playing pretty much exclusively in the PvP ladder, and during that time I've seen an awful lot of people make a lot of simple mistakes, and I thought, why not? Well, let's make a video and we can share those simple mistakes with you so you can avoid doing the same thing. First mistake is scoring too early. A lot of people, when they start the game with the ball, they will go and score not on turn 8, but they will go and score on turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. And that unfortunately has a very, very profound effect on the final outcome of the game. Because if we think this through, you go and score on turn 4. I get my turns 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So I've got 5 turns to score back. I go and score back on turn 8. We're now at half time, 1-1. I receive the ball at the second half. If I can slow my score and score on turn 16, you only get 1 turn to score back, and I'm going to win the game. At no point do I need to actually pressure you or do anything, so make sure you do not go and score too quickly. On top of that, people, and built around the same sort of premise, people don't therefore cover the centre of the pitch, because people will pick the ball up, they'll go and walk to a sideline, and then they'll get stuck there. So if that's happening to you, what you need to do is you need to go into the middle of the field, and instead of making a really tight box with all of your players, and what's going to happen then is the opponent is just going to cluster around you and you're not going to be able to move. It's going to feel very constricted. You need to create the space by taking your offense and making it as wide as possible. And also don't take it to a sideline, because if you go down to a sideline, you can only attack that sideline, and maybe you can attack through the middle. So do not score too early. Do not make your setup too narrow. The next one is safety first. People moving the ball carrier, making actions before making sure the ball carrier is totally safe. So the number one goal in Blood Bowl is actually not about killing things, but it's about scoring touchdowns. In my head, every time I make any move, the first proper question I'm asking myself is that ball safe? Because the action you're about to make, if it fails, can your opponent hit the ball carrier? So what does that look like in the real in Blood Bowl? Well, number one, not only go and pick the ball up, but also maybe go and pick a couple of people in front of the ball, so that if you fail the pickup, you've got not one player around the ball, but maybe 3. Make sure that if you have picked the ball up, once you've moved the ball, go and move some screen people in front of it, so that your opponent can't hit the ball if you fail the action. And another common one that I've seen a lot of people do is they'll take their entire team of 11 players, and then they will go and set up a cage somewhere else, and they'll move all the people away from the cage, during the cage, and then the ball carrier needs to make a dodge. Maybe it's a human thrower. Maybe it needs to make a 3+ dodge. All their team have run away. They then make the dodge last. It fails, and then their entire team is 6 squares away, 8 squares away. So make sure that the priority in your game, once you've made sure that you're not scoring too quickly, is ball safety. That is absolutely, it's actually number 2 priority. But those two, scoring and ball safety, if you can just do those 2 things, you're going to have a whale of a time. Next one is risk management. So Blood Bowl is absolutely a risk management game. So I think what you can actually say is start with the least risky actions first, and then work your way through to doing the more risky stuff at the end. This is basic Blood Bowl. The actual way of playing Blood Bowl, once you've got a grasp of that, is actually to do the most important actions first, and then you work your way through. But if you're a new coach watching this, I strongly advise you just to do all the 2 dice blocks with block first, and make sure you're doing your 2+ dodges with dodge, and then you work through to your 1 dice blocks with block, and then your 2 dice blocks without block, all that sort of stuff first, because the more prevalent your action that you might fail, if you put that at the start of your turn, you're going to have to use a reroll. And then if you keep doing that, on turn 1 you might spend a reroll. On turn 2 you spend a reroll. On turn 3 you spend a reroll. Now when you get to the important half of the game, which is turn 6, 7, 8, you've got no rerolls left, because you spent them doing other stuff, which you had to do. So make sure you do your least risky actions first. So there's a common trope on Twitch, it's called do safe moves first. It's not actually right, but it's definitely better than doing nothing right. So I would say you do your safe moves first. And also think about things that are low value but also got risk and try and cut those out of your game. I'll give you a couple of examples. First one is making go for it's that don't really do anything just because you'd like to be a little bit further forward. So think about that go for it. Do you need to make it? Is it okay where you are? Can you maybe cut a corner with dodge instead? So instead of making a go for it at the end of that player's move, can you make a 2+ dodge with dodge skill? And the other one that's absolutely a bugbear of mine is people using their big guy at the start of a turn. So a lot of new coaches will say, well, my strength 5 Minotaur, I can get 2 dice on this player and I'll do that first. Big guys are absolutely a liability, and while they are really strong, they are also incredibly unreliable, and you should think about it over the course of maybe 10 games. It will go wrong in a couple of those games, and in those games you just lose them rather than get draws or wins potentially if you keep doing it. So try and use your big guys towards the end of the turn, and if it's a troll or an ogre, do you even need to move it? Can it just go and mark something and you get value out of it just being passively there, annoying your opponent? Don't know, you need to think about that. After that, and we've got a bit of strategy going on, think about the mechanics of the game. So the next one is giving away too many hits. And that has many forms. So if you're giving me 50 hits a game and I only give you 15 hits a game, let's say, because I move all my players out of contact every turn, then by the time we get to the end of the game, I'm probably still going to have my 11 players and you might only have 7. And suddenly you don't even have to be a better coach. You can just be the same level of coach. And if you've got less players than me, you're going to struggle. So don't give away a hit. A hit should be considered like an armor break, and an armor break is of course a removal. So you want to keep your 11 players on the field as much as possible. And that is true. Doesn't matter whether you're playing Orcs or you're playing Skaven. Do not try and give away lots of hits. So how do you do that? Number one, don't just stand up a player that got knocked over just because you need to do a safe move. It's only a safe move if that player, when you stand up, is definitely doing something. And another sort of value add on that is over the first 4 turns of your drive, think about whether that player even needs to stand up. Can it just lie on the floor? Is it adding value by being in the way? So your opponent isn't trying to score until turn 8 now. So remember, the first 4 turns don't really matter very much. So leave the players lying down. After that, following up into standing players. So when you're throwing your 2 dice blocks, I see a lot of coaches just automatically follow every single turn. Well, after that, if you followed all your players into mine, and it's now my turn, I don't have to do anything. I can just punch them all over systematically, one at a time. I might not knock them all over, but you're giving me 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hits potentially, and I'll get a few armor breaks on there, and very quickly you're not going to have your 11 players. You're going to have 6 or 7 or 8. And by extension, on top of that, if you're following up your blocks when you're moving into standing players, the rule really should be, if you knock something over, keep it in base-to-base contact with one of your players. If you don't knock it over, push it away. Nice, clear, simple rule, and it works in about 95% of cases. And if you want to try and do something really clever, when your players are based, sometimes you can block and follow up, and your player then moves out of tackle zones of 2 or 3 players. So think about how you're doing your blocking, and can you block away from your opponent, or can you just block so that as you block things and you push them away from your own team, so by the time you've ended your turn, all your 2 dice blocks have left you with no players in base-to-base contact. That will get around this giving away too many hits problem. The next one, and the final one I've seen an awful lot in playing public matchmaking, is people not really understanding their team value and what team value even does. And ultimately, when you and I play in public matchmaking, the game is actually matching you on your team value and me on my team value. So if you're playing at 1500 team value because you've gone and bought 5 rerolls because you've got the bank and you've got 15 players, and then I'm playing at 1500 team value, but I'm only playing with 12 players and 3 rerolls, well, there must be something different about our teams. And there is. The difference is that I'll have loads more skills that'll impact the game. So if we're playing, let's say, an Orc mirror match, just because Varag's on the screen here, if I've got 1500 Orcs and I've only got 12 players, and you've got 15 players, imagine you've got 3 more Orc linemen than I've got. That's 150 team value because each one costs 50k. And each normal skill is 20 team value. So I've now got 8 skills more than you. You could argue that 8 skills could be 8 players with guard. Suddenly, yes, you've got a bench, but I've got 8 more guard than you, and you're going to really struggle. So try and avoid things like, number 1, don't go above 3 rerolls. You can go 3 rerolls on leader, you can go 3 rerolls. There are some teams that like 4, Skaven for example, maybe Elves, but definitely teams with no more of a reroll cost than 50, maybe 60k. So try and stay at 3 rerolls. Number 2, avoid any of the superfluous rubbish like coaches and cheerleaders and other nonsense. The only thing you want is your dedicated fans and you want your apothecary. Everything else in that little box along the bottom, ignore it. It's junk. Do not take it. Number 3, don't go over 13 players. Never go more than 13. And if you're playing in public matchmaking right now, you probably want to stop at 12. The rule of thumb is that for 1,000 to 1,300 team value, you play with 11. 1,300 to 1,500, you play with 12. And 1,500 to more, you play with 13. Only at maybe 2,000 plus team value do you want to be playing with 14. And that's, again, only on some teams. And then the final one that I've got for you within this managing team value bracket is about taking skills that are not a waste of time. So every time you level a player up, he needs to do something better than you did before. Not the same, but better. Because again, you're matching on team value. This doesn't matter whether you're playing against the AI or against people, but the AI will punish you much less than people will. So if you're randoming a skill, does that 10k extra, yes, it's only 10k, but if you random lots of skills, are those players doing anything? Or if you just picked up lots of pile driver? If you have, fire the player, start again. It's totally okay to random, but if the random skill's garbage, fire the player, start again. And I've seen a lot of teams spin into me at 1,300 team value. They've randomed everything, and they've got loads of junk, and I've got half as many skills, but all of my skills are block, guard, mighty blow, tackle, dodge, all those sorts of good skills that add real value to the team, and then they just get annihilated. Now, I can boil all that down for you into just 4 questions, and this is when I do my coaching sessions. I go through this first bit in a lot more detail than I'm about to now, but there are 4 questions, and if you ask these 4 questions at the start of every turn, you'll be fine. Question 1, what turn is it? What's my plan? What am I trying to achieve? What's going on, right? Before you move anything, have a plan. And that plan should start with you're trying to score on turn 8, and you should work back from that period of time. So whatever turn it is now, what are you trying to achieve? Works on defense, just ask the question slightly differently. What's my opponent trying to achieve? How am I going to stop it? Question 2, is the ball safe? Don't do anything if the ball isn't safe. Go fix that ball safety problem. That's going to be your primary function in that turn. You can link those 2 questions together and you can have a lot of fun with them and do some thought experiments, but you'll find that what turn is it? Is the ball safe? If you do those 2 things, you're going to have a whale of a time. And then you've got 2 mechanical questions on the end of it, which are 3, where's my blitz? And then 4, where am I taking my 2 dice blocks? And what I've seen a lot of new coaches do is they start with question 4, they just take their blocks, then they do the blitz, or they do the blitz and the blocks, and then they go, oh no, where am I going to put the ball? So try and do it the right way round. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll put the questions and put them as a pinned link so you can just grab them and jot them down if you want. Now, all of this is just a very introductory guide to how to play Blood Bowl. There is, of course, loads more. Things like, how do I actually win a game? How do I force mistakes? Where should I be putting my players? Unfortunately, that's probably for another video. Or, of course, you can come in and tune in to my Twitch channel, which is as linked on the screen here. And I stream every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening from 7 p.m. or Saturday and Sunday evening from 5 p.m. UK time. Hope the video was really helpful. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. And until the next one, I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching.